Gold Shields brings true stories from law enforcement, the military, true crime authors, and first responders. Experience the dedication, danger, and emotional toll with the heroes themselves. These gripping tales of true crimes, true stories, and true heroes are all here on Gold Shields.
Welcome back to Gold Shields. This is Dan Murphy, along with my partner in crime, Tom Smith. We are very excited about our guest and very honored to have him on the show today. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit first about some of our friends and sponsors. One of those is Bone Frog Coffee. I talk about it all the time because I drink it all the time. Tim Cruikshank, who's the founder and CEO, is a career Navy SEAL commander. Tim is one of the best people you'll ever meet in this life, and he does this because he wants to give back, and he gives back to the SEAL community in a big way. Get yourself the best coffee. Trust me, I love it. It's the best coffee. I drink it all the time. bonefrogcoffee.com/goldshields and get our promo code discount. It's the best stuff you'll drink. Do yourself that favor. We also want to talk very quickly about a special we're doing here on Gold Shields, and we're doing it with Impact as well. Between now and the date of the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame induction, which is March 22nd in Fort Worth, Texas, we have a special offer going on. If you purchase a Gold Shields Challenge coin, and you can get them from our website, thegoldshieldshow.com, we will give $10 for each coin that you buy to the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame to help them build it as an entity, build a physical presence, and continue the great work of honoring the men and women of law enforcement. For every gold challenge coin, and they're pretty amazing. Tom, hold one up if you don't mind. The audience needs to see it if you haven't seen them. They're so cool. They're like a hockey puck. It's like a manhole cover, but it's also got great graphics, 3D graphics, a great challenge coin. It'll be the gem of your collection if you like challenge coins. So every one that you buy, we will donate $10 to the hall. Secondly, Impact. CarryImpact.com, the alternative to pepper spray, starting to take off. We're getting real busy with it. We have also pledged to the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame. For every MK3, we will donate $5. For every MK4, we'll donate $10. If you make purchases of these products, we're going to donate directly. That's our vow to the National Hall so they can build that up. And go to their website, nationalleohalloffame.com. You will find out more about this amazing, worthwhile organization. So get your wallets out. It's for a good cause. Help our friends, help those who help us. And Tom, what do you want to share with us this morning?
Yeah, just going off that, it's important to us. We came up with this idea. We talked to Megan, and she's thrilled, and we're happy to give back. And that's what this is all about, just giving back. One of the things that Dan mentioned was our spray Impact, all right, alternative to pepper spray. This is a game changer and will be a game changer in every law enforcement agency in this country. No cross-contamination, no blowback, quick and easy cleanup with just water. No impact on your respiratory system. It is absolutely completely different than what's out there, which is not being used. This stuff will be used. It's effective, it's safe, and it's quick. And that's everything you want when you're making an arrest or showing up to a situation where you need to use this. It's a great product. Go to carryimpact.com, carryimpact.com. Taking orders on our website. You can read all about the different size of our canisters, MK3, 4, and 9s. It's all on there. Carryimpact.com. Game changer within law enforcement, the security agencies, hospital staff, and the public as well. It's got a UV dye in it for the public, which is a great tool for identifying a bad guy later on. Carryimpact.com. Go to the website. Danny, what do we got today, buddy?
Well, we are blessed to have a gentleman who has his resume could be read like the Library of Congress, and yeah, he's laughing right now. But he's so accomplished and so vital to that people know the story of people like him, because there are few. His career has been exemplary, and we're going to let him talk you through it. But this man has been involved in his career in federal law enforcement, in the military, at the highest levels around the world on the most significant cases. And he's now an author, and he has written textbooks for drug techniques, investigative techniques, and things along those nature. And he has his first novel coming out soon, which I can't wait to read. But we want to give a warm Gold Shields welcome to our guest this morning, Mr. Gregory Lee, career DEA agent and federal agent, and we are just so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for your time today, Greg.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So we want to give our audience a little bit of peek into your background. Where did you grow up, and what led you into your life of service? Because it's been a life of service.
Well, I grew up in a place called Rosemead, California, which is in Los Angeles County, not too far from Pasadena. And I grew up there, stayed there till I was 19 after graduating from high school. I considered going in the military right after high school, but I went to a junior college, and there were so many Vietnam veterans using their GI Bill that it took a year to get 15 semester hours. So I was kind of frustrated with that. And so I thought maybe I should reevaluate this. And just about the time I was, sure enough, the draft lottery numbers came for 1972, and my birthday was drawn as number 1. And the day before my birthday was number 2. So I was done no matter what. They were going to get me. So shortly thereafter, I enlisted to be a military policeman, and I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So I'm a Vietnam era veteran, because about a year later is when in fact, actually, the day I graduated from MP school, they signed the Paris Peace Accords, and President Nixon ended the draft. But they still took people up to like number 22. So I would have been done no matter how you look at it. So I thought, well, get in, get out, and move on to something else. And in the meantime, I kind of enjoyed the Army. I was an MP. Shortly after I became an MP investigator, I really liked investigations. And then when I turned 22, I was then eligible to apply to be a CID agent, which is a criminal investigator for the Criminal Investigation Division. So I put in for that. Sure enough, I got accepted. And 2 years later, I went from a Spec 5, which is equivalent to a Sergeant E5, a buck sergeant, to a warrant officer. I got appointed to that based on mostly college and your experience and those things. Because when I was in Germany, I went to University of Maryland had overseas courses, and there was no excuse to not go to college. I mean, they have before work, at lunch, after work, weekends. So I plotted it out and got my bachelor's just about the time I left, like within a week of leaving Germany to go to Fort Ord. And from there, now I had a 3-year commitment as a warrant officer, did that. So after 8 years, I was pretty burned out. I'm going to school, and in fact, at Fort Ord, got a master's degree. So I'm pretty much burned out at this point. I said, I think I'll move on to something else. But I did stay in the reserves. I'm very glad I did. From when I left CID, active duty, I applied for a DEA. And I talked to the recruiter in Los Angeles, and he said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sound like you might be a white male. I said, yeah, you got that right. He says, well, forget it. Just do everybody a favor. Don't bother, because it's not going to happen. Unless you're a minority member who's handicapped. And he had the whole litany laid out. I said, fine, don't worry about it. So I moved on and became a police officer in Salinas, which is in Monterey County. It's a county seat, actually. And I did my probation period there, finished that. And about that time, my wife got a job offering in Los Angeles. So that was hard to pass up. So she took it, and then I lateraled down to the Pasadena Police Department. I spent 2.5 years there. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed patrol. And I enjoyed it because as an investigator, as you know, every day you go to work, it's the same thing over again. And every time you walk by your desk, you hear barking noises of the case files because they're so old and getting, like, my God, you can't get rid of the damn thing, till all the leads are done and all that. But at patrol, when you're done, and you're on to the next incident, whatever it happens to be. So that was a lot of fun. But so after, in fact, it was interesting. I was a field training officer, had a brand new officer, and she was dating an FBI agent. And she said, "Oh, did you know that DEA has 400 openings?" I said, "Man, I had no idea." So, man, I drove right back to the station, made a phone call, and within 6 months, I was a DEA agent. They did the background, everything was done. And I was lucky enough to stay in Los Angeles. At the time, their policy was that you could not return to any office within the field division you applied in. I thought, well, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm willing to do it because I had 8 years military, which I could tack on to any federal retirement. So it's like having 8 years walking in the door. And so I went to, at that time, I went to FLETIC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia there at Glencoe. And they didn't tell you where you're going to go until about the 10th week of school. They figured they got you, you got too much invested now. So they came out and they said, okay, all you New York guys, you're all going to Los Angeles. They were listening, and he goes, and all you LA guys, you're all going to New York. I said, oh my God, I never, I said, I'll go anywhere. I'll go to Detroit, Washington, D.C., the border, whatever. Nope. No, you big city guys, you'll do just fine, at your new home. And brother. So now we got together, the LA guys and the New York guys got together and swapping stories about housing and transportation and all this. And I remember one of the New York guys said, yeah, chances are you'll probably live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania? Are you kidding me? Yeah, he says, you can't afford the city, so you're going to have to live out in the suburbs, which stretch way out to Philly or somewhere else. Oh, yeah. So I was not real happy. And then about a week later, the agent in charge came in and he says, well, guess what? We ran out of transfer money and all you guys are going back to where you came from. Oh, man. We were having fun that night. That was great news.
That's the lottery, huh?
Oh, yeah. So back in LA, I could hit the ground running there. It's not an issue. Even though we're working Pasadena, I knew all about LA and where to go and how to do it. And next thing you knew, I developed a few informants, did a few cases, and I was having a lot of fun. Because see, the difference between, like an after the fact crime that you're investigating, the whodunit, nobody knows who done it, and you're the guy in charge to do it based on the evidence you have or where it leads. In DEA, those type drug investigations, we know who the crook is. No question about it. Now we have to prove the allegations that we're having against him based on mostly informant information. So you have to be careful about informants and all that stuff. But if it pans out, you got the guys. And in the federal system, it was a lot different than I was used to in California. If you get arrested by the feds and you go to federal court, my God, you've been arrested. You've got something because the whole weight of the U.S. government is on you. Versus a state court that I've dealt with in California, most of the cases got resolved out in the hallway. The DA, deputy DA would show up with a stack of cases like this. He'd say, who are you and why are you here? And I said, well, the Jones case. which one is that? What did he do? And I said, just put me on the stand and ask what happened. This guy had no clue. I mean, they were just so overwhelmed. Whereas in the federal system, man, oh man, they've got it down to a T. They don't take everything, and they have a lot of time to devote, and they have the resources to do it. And it's quite an experience, if you testify in federal court, or if you somehow piss the judge off. I mean, there's some ramifications right off the bat. I've seen it where a juror, he was picked for a case I had that they estimate was going to be 8 weeks. And the guy said, hey, no way I can do 8 weeks, Well, the judge says, well, I think you're kind of obligated at this point, so we'll see you here Monday morning. Well, Monday morning comes, the guy don't show. So he sends the marshals out to him. They arrest him, take him in. He gave him time in the Metropolitan Detention Center for the whole period that the trial was going. Yikes, first because who knows what. Yeah.
That's, yep, federal judges, man. Federal judges have a strong arm in what they can do. Just real quick, I just wanted to ask you, and we've asked many other guests this, how is the transition from street cop, run around in your patrol car, to now the federal world? How was that for you, and was it exciting? Did you have a little bit more freedom to do what you wanted to do?
Actually, I saw more freedom as a patrol officer, because once you open an investigation, there's no discretion left. I mean, you're duty bound to prove or disprove whatever the informant is telling you about these crooks that he's dealing with. So it actually took me back to like when I worked for CID in the Army. We went to work every day in a suit and never wore a uniform. I don't think anybody in the office, all of us put together, could come up with one full uniform, because you just never wore one. So I was used to it. So I was pretty much greased on what to expect and how to do it. I was relieved to see that the paperwork that DEA did was much less than what the Army required. So that was, and we had, DEA, it was almost, in Los Angeles, it's almost like the sky's the limit. Every kind of crook, every kind of drug, every kind of conspiracy, any kind of gangbangers, you name it, it's all there. It's a real target environment.
So when you went into DEA, can I ask what year that was?
83. I was hired Christmas Day. That was the start of the pay period. And then, ironically, my resignation date in Pasadena was the 26th. I got paid by both agencies on Christmas Day in 1983. And then now I'm hanging around waiting to go to the academy. And that wasn't until April. So here I am. I'm watching all these agents doing all these wonderful things. And I go on surveillance or, oh, no, kid, you can't do anything till you get trained. But here's a whole bunch of tapes you can transcribe for us. Oh God,
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting around to go with the academy. But once I got back, man, I hit the ground running. We were busy.
Yeah. So you went in when it was DEA at that time, but it wasn't long before that. It was the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs.
Yeah, that was I was right at the 10-year anniversary for DEA.
So DEA was evolving and becoming a much
we had
more...
guys, old timers that were BDD guys, and they came from customs. So we had a whole variety of folks in there. And then the longer you stay, the more it became 100% DEA trained, brand new agents. So it was interesting to get the perspective of what it was like in the old days versus what we had then.
So DEA is a global force. And for listeners who may not be fully aware, they have what's called legal attaches and offices around the world. And you had the opportunity to serve around the world with the DEA. And how long were you with them, and how did that work out? How did that come to pass?
Well, the legal attache is the term for FBI agents at the embassies. The DEA, we have country attaches, and they're essentially the boss of the office there. And so after I left LA, I went to Monterey County, set up an office there, and then from there went to the FBI Academy, where I taught for 3.5 years. And then after about 3 years, here comes the boss, and he gets us all together, and he says, start looking for a new home because time's up here. You got to go find something. So they pretty much let us decide where we wanted to go. And my wife and I had talked about going overseas. And while I was at the academy, my wife got hired to be an intelligence analyst for DEA. And so it was kind of funny. Here I am teaching a class at the intelligence analyst. There's my wife in there. And she had to stay at the academy the whole 8 weeks, So here I am with 2 kids by myself. But anyway, we looked into what tandem couple overseas positions were. And they had one in Mexico, one in Colombia or somewhere. But one of them was reserved for another employee who was married to a CIA guy. So that took care of that. And they said, oh, and there's Islamabad, Pakistan. And it's an English-speaking post. Well, that's good because the last thing I wanted to do was, foreign language school. So sure enough, we got selected for the Islamabad position. And it was quite a culture shock going to Pakistan. This is now 1984. I was there till 1988. And a lot of stuff happened during that time frame. And the first 6 months or so, it was almost like, this ain't bad. There's not a lot of heavy lifting. You're mostly gathering drug intelligence. You're not doing cases anymore. Although we would develop an informant and then turn him on to the New York office or somewhere else for drug smuggling or whatever it happened to be. But then all of a sudden, it's February of 94. And we could tell the closest thing, we didn't have any FBI presence in Islamabad. But we had the regional security officers, which are the diplomatic security service agents. They have about 3 or 4 of them. And their job is to keep the diplomats and the embassy safe. And they're running around like we usually had lunch together. They were the closest thing to law enforcement that was there. So we got along real well. But all of a sudden they were kind of standoffish and they're running around and hey Jeff, let's go to lunch. Oh, I can't go. You're on. Something's up. And so I was a little concerned that there's some kind of security thing going on. Anyway, I go to work. It's a Wednesday. I get there about 8:30, and my boss calls me into his office, and there's the regional security officer and his 2 assistants. And he says, well, guess what? The reason we've been running around like crazy is because a week ago, a woman, a diplomat's wife, at her residence off the embassy, called and said that this guy had gone to her house, knocked on the door, and he could tell it was an American there because the license plate, the dip plates on the cars, he knew what it was U.S. He knocks on the door and he starts talking gibberish about planes and explosions and Ramzi Yousef and the woman. He scared the hell out of the woman who good for her. She called the embassy, talked to the RSO. He sends these 2 guys out to her place, and they interview the guy, and they figured this guy sounds like the real deal. So they put him in their in the back of their SUV, put a blanket over him, because every time you go into the embassy, you've got security, and every one of them is Pakistani, and they didn't want anybody to know who this guy was, and so they smuggled him into the embassy and started debriefing him. And he told them that they had, apparently Ramzi Yousef was his brother-in-law, and he solicited this guy to plant a bomb onto an American airliner, which was one of 12 airliners that were going to be rigged up with explosives and set with timers, and they were all designed to blow up simultaneously over the Pacific Ocean. And so this guy committed to doing it at one time, but then he started getting really cold feet, and he didn't want to get involved in this thing anymore. And so that's when he went to this woman. So when Jeff Reiner and Bill, his associate there, started debriefing him, they started sending cable traffic all the way, back to State Department, FBI, CIA, everybody else. And this guy was told by Youssef that he was going to return on the Saturday after I was being briefed on Wednesday. He was supposed to be there 2 days later, and that was going to buy ample time for the FBI and CIA to come out and be on the ground when he arrived. Well, here it is Wednesdays, not Saturday, and they said, well, guess what? Ramzi Yousef got here yesterday night, and he's leaving at 10:30 to go on a bus to go to Peshawar. There I'm looking, it's like, it's 8:30. We got 90 minutes to go get the world's most... Here they go, well, we're asking for your help because you're the law enforcement guys here. So my partner and I, we decided, well, okay, let's go. Let's figure out where is he for starters. Came up with a game plan, and the RSO himself, he didn't go. Of course, he's a bigwig. He didn't get involved in this stuff, and my boss didn't go. But me and Cliff Best, the other DEA agent, and our 2 Foreign Service National DEA cleared investigators came with, as well as Jeff and Bill. The RSO said, look, what we want to do is follow Youssef from his house, or the guest house that he's in, and follow him to the bus station, and then from there we'll follow the bus he's on until we can get the authorities to go out there and take custody of him. Well, okay, we'll see. So my partner Cliff and the one FSN stayed at the guest house. Jeff Reiner and I got in the car with my FSN and went to the bus station. And I had never been to the bus station, and I looked at it and it said, "You have got to be kidding! There is no way we're going to be able to identify this guy." Everybody in Pakistan wears the same outfit. It's called a shawal kameez, and it looks like a pajama top and white, a matching white pants, real baggy. Everybody there, if they're Youssef's age, they all are, black over brown, tan complexion. They all got facial hair. Everybody looks alike. I mean, everybody looks like it. I said, there ain't no way in hell we're going to identify this guy if he's wearing a shawal kameez, which it's a 99% chance he will. So I called my partner Cliff up and I said, this ain't going to happen here. I told the DSS guy, Jeff, that I said, I don't know what your guy's thinking, but I think the better idea is go back to the guest room, and when the guy comes out, we'll hook him up. It's that simple. we were told, we can't put our hands on anybody. I said, I get that, but you don't understand. This is the world's most wanted guy. If we don't get this today, we may never see him again. Who knows what's going to happen? So we've got to get this guy. And I understand, you work for the State Department. I don't. And neither does Cliff. And we're going to hook this son of a bitch up. And so what I suggest is don't get in the way. Keep the people away from us. And we'll take care of the rest. And we'll take them over to the Pakistan anti-narcotic force and shame them into doing something with this guy. Explain to what's going on. But I said, if they want to PNG me and Cliff, that's a feather in our hat. That's fine. Persona non grata, kick you out of the country. That's fine. That'd be a feather in our hat, but it could be career threatening for them. So I said, just don't worry about it. We'll take care of it.
Hey, Greg, let me just jump in real quick. Before you get, I want to hear about the apprehension. Just to give our audience kind of a background of Ramzi Yousef at that time. In 1993, in February, the first World Trade Center bombing happened down in Lower Manhattan, the site of the 9/11 attacks. Ramzi Yousef was responsible for that planning and that attack. He was the most wanted terrorist during that time around the world. The plot that Greg is talking about was called the Bojinka Plot, which was a simultaneous bombing of 12 airlines that were going to be across the Pacific Ocean at the time. And Ramzi Yousef was a bomb maker. He was, by all stretches, pretty brilliant. I mean, he's a psychopath, but he was so on his game. And you have brilliance and psychopath in the same sentence. That's really dangerous, especially if you're a terrorist. And so he was the target at the time around the world. And the Bojinka plot was actually the basis for 9/11. That plot and that plan was what led to the planes operation of 9/11. Bin Laden thought 12 was way too much and narrowed it down to what actually happened on 9/11. But I just wanted to get that out there because it's a fascinating story. And I just want everyone to know, it's not every day, especially a DEA agent in Pakistan is now in the midst of grabbing the most wanted guy on earth for horrific crimes. And not to mention what was being planned. So not only are you apprehending a wanted terrorist, you're preventing the murder of thousands of people. So now I can imagine what's on your head. You're running around your brain of those two facts that you now have to have in front of you of this guy. And now everyone can understand a little bit of walking into that station with him right there, but now seeing the the grand scale that you now have to get him, and what you're going to have to do to apprehend him. And God, I'd be out of my mind, going after someone like that too. So, Greg, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to, the enormity of what you're doing. I just want everyone to understand. So please continue with getting them.
When I'll fast forward a little bit and come back, but the assistant U.S. attorney in New York Southern District told me that if you add all the passengers that could have been on those planes, you add up the numbers, it exceeded 3,200 people, which exceeded the death toll in 9/11. Now, we had no idea about 9/11 happening at the moment. But you put that in perspective, it's like, shit, yeah, that's a lot. That's a big hit. And the 93 World Trade Center, there were 6 killed and 1,000 injured. And that son of a bitch wanted to knock one building over for a domino effect in the other tower and have both of them fall in the direction of Wall Street. And I think they were tall enough to reach Wall Street. So anyway, back to what we're doing to you. So anyway, I convinced the DSS guy, Jeff, that we're not going to the bus station. And so he Yeah, I get it. Yeah, he's all in. And then his cell phone rings, and it's his boss who reminds him, don't get your hands dirty. Don't touch this guy. You can't touch him now. So you do what you got to do, but I'm just telling you what Cliff and I are going to do. So we end up back at the guest house and set up on the street, and he's on the second floor, and you can see the curtains ruffling. So he's still there. And in the meantime, one of our FSNs went in and gave some bullshit story about trying to find out who was in the place, and he was looking for his friend or something. So we knew where he was. And just about that time, in the meantime, while we're running around doing all this, the U.S. ambassador himself drove over to the Minister of the Interior and pleaded with him to do something. Here was this guy. Here's the opportunity to do something with this guy. So we didn't know if he was going to be successful or not. But he must have been, because all of a sudden, here comes the cavalry, and you got about 12 brand new cars show up, and all these ISI guys, the inter-service intelligence guys, get out, and they all got AKs, and it looked like a Chinese fire drill. But so we're there at the doors saying, come on, it's this way, and up the stairs. And so we run up the stairs. We got the key from the clerk downstairs, and I'm behind a wall, and I've got a gun, but I'm thinking this guy's going to lob a hand grenade out of here or something. So I'm around the corner like this as they open the door, and sure enough, there he is. There he is. He's in a white T-shirt and brown knit slacks, no shoes, and he just hadn't completely gotten dressed yet. So now the ISI feel like, well, we got to do something, and of course they're not police. They don't have the handcuffs, so they find the guy's shirt and tie his hands behind his back, and then they find a knit sweater he was going to be wearing, and they put that around over his head, and wrapped the sleeves around it and tied it up, and ran him right out the door, back out to the street to take him somewhere. And like, well, hello, here we are. Where you? No idea where they're going to go. So we jump back in our car, my FSN guy and I, and we follow them through all kinds of residential areas, and we ended up at some kind of safe house. We get in there, and now they've got somebody found a pair of handcuffs, and there's a big chain link chain attached to the handcuffs, and he's sitting in a corner, and the other side is hooked up to a old style radiator, and he's still got this sweater over his head. So about that time, to my pleasant surprise, actually, the door opens up, and here comes a guy named Brad Garrett. He's an FBI agent, and he's there not because of this. He was already en route on a completely unrelated case, the Kanzi case, where he killed the 2 CIA employees outside Langley about the same time, 93. And so he was scheduled to come out to do some follow-up leads or whatever he was doing. And as soon as he got to the embassy, they told him what was happening, and they found, I don't know how, but he found us where we were. And Brad walks in, and he's wearing a New York Yankee cap, a down jacket that was sleeveless, and Levi's. And he might as well have a sign around his neck saying, "Hey, I'm an American, here I am, So he's there just in time for the ISI now are going to take the sweater off his head. And it started to come up, and when it came up to about his nose, he had this just devious kind of smile on his face that just showed the confidence, like, I'm going to be out of here in no time. And he didn't think anything of it, and they kept going up and up. But finally got it off, and he started blinking his eyes, rubbing his eyes and shaking his head. He looked over, saw me in a suit, and Brad, and his hands were cuffed in front of him, and we saw us. He started shaking like this. and the chains were rattling. I mean, he was scared to death because he knew there's no way he's going to get out of this one. Oh man. So I told Brad, look, this is your case. You do what you got to do. I'm going to go back to the guest house and see what the hell's in there. Collect evidence, whatever the hell he's got. Who knows? So I ran back to the embassy and got the camera, evidence bags, all that stuff, and went back to the guest house where Cliff and Jeff had stayed to secure the place. And on the bed are these, remember the old timetables, airline timetables? You find them at the airport at the ticket counter. They were tall and thin and thick, and they had every flight that the carrier made. He had them for, as I recall, Delta, United, and American Airlines. And there were pages there that were dog-eared of what planes he was identifying as the ones he wants to do. He had a leather briefcase that opened it up, and it's got 9 Casio watches with the backs off of them. And there's wires soldered to the back of it. And he's got a soldering gun and solder in there and some fluffy cotton kind of material. I didn't understand what the hell that was. But a bomb expert told me later on that is used to stabilize nitroglycerin. Okay, I didn't see any nitro there, but either way. Oh, and then he had a toy police car, ironically, which was going to be what the nitro was going to be held into. And according to the informant, all the planes are going to be 747s, and on the upper deck, if you go into the restroom, there's a false ceiling. You take one of the ceiling panels out, stuff the police car up there, and then it'll land. Then you get off, takes off again, and then that second flight would be the one that would explode over the Pacific Ocean. So anyway, Brad took care of Ramsey there. I went back and found all this sort of stuff. In the meantime, the wheels are rolling in Washington and planes are taking off. And the FBI arrived that night, and Janet Reno wanted them to take his fingerprints again to match them to the INS fingerprints that were taken at the time they arrived in New York for the trade center. And sure enough, it was him. They put him on the plane and off they go. And they made it I think they went to, Teterboro Airport or something like that.
And, yeah, in New Jersey.
And a FBI helicopter took them off. And they were flying over the World Trade Center. And one of the agents said, yeah, see, they're still here. And Ramsey said, if I only had about $30,000 more, they wouldn't be here. Yikes! So there you go. What a son of a bitch this guy is. And the Bojinka thing, what all that was about. Youssef was in the Philippines, in Manila, and he and another guy were making bombs, and their intention was to kill Bill Clinton on a visit there, and then later kill the Pope that was going to be visiting. And when you make bombs, shit happens, and sure enough, a fire started, and they fled. And the fire department came, the police were there, and the police were curious about Middle Eastern guys here, the laptop. So they went through the whole thing and found this one Microsoft file that said Bojinka. And it laid the whole damn thing out as to what he was going to do. And so that's how we knew that, this is the real deal here. I mean, we're really talking about somebody who's intent on doing this. And a little side note, Brad Garrett is now the law enforcement consultant or something for ABC News, and has been for quite a while.
Yeah, I've seen him on TV before. Wow, what a story. This is the kind of stuff, obviously this is an extraordinary case because this was the single most wanted person in the world. And sometimes we think they're going to be hiding like Bin Laden in the middle of the mountains, but they're just sitting in a house someplace in the country where they feel completely safe. And we've got people there like you. And all it takes is that one person to either get caught and flip, or to come in or call in that piece of information, whether it be for the reward, for a vendetta against them, whatever it is. And in this case, you guys going out there, Tom and I have both felt that feeling when it's like, okay, me, my gun, a radio, my partner, a set of cuffs, and we're sitting, I worked on kidnappings. We got a crew of people inside this house with AKs holding somebody hostage. There's two of us down the block with our Glocks, and we're praying that the cavalry comes. We don't want anything to happen, but you're in a foreign country. I mean, that feeling of completely being on your own and knowing you're set up outside the place where you have a very strong belief the most wanted person in the world is sitting there, and he's completely at ease. But wow, I mean, how does that make you feel when it's like, we got him?
Oh man, I was thrilled, because then I had bragging rights, and
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that if we had gone with, if timing is everything, and if this guy had left and we'd follow the directions of the RSO, guy'd be in the wind, and that'd be the end of the story. I mean, it would just been tragic to think about that. And then also now, the embassy's thrilled, and you can imagine the FBI, they're all excited. And the box I gave the FBI agents with all the evidence I got were all in DEA evidence banks. And I was told that when that box made it to New York, all of a sudden they were all in FBI evidence banks. So whatever, So
There's the shock.
And then at the trial, he was tried separately for Bojinka as well, and then for the World Trade Center. And he represented himself, and he had a legal advisor there. So now I'm there to introduce all the evidence I found, and then cross-examination, Youssef is asking me questions, just killing time questions, And Judge Duffy told us, refer to him in the third person. Not you, hey, you did this or whatever. So I'm, 45 minutes talking on the stand to this guy. And then he said something like, well, where was Mr. Youssef at the time you entered the building or the room? And I said, well, you're standing by the window looking down. And the judge, time out, and he rolled over to me and he says, Agent, do I have to remind you again to refer to him in the third person? No, sir. Not a problem.
That is the theater of the absurd. We've seen that in other cases, specifically on Long Island. A guy named Colin Ferguson who shot up the Long Island Railroad train in spectacular fashion, represented himself. And the witnesses were like, in state court, looking and going, it was you. You did it. You shot me. Representing yourself is never a good move.
Right. You got to fool for a client. That's for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
And so anyway, there was a $2 million reward for Youssef. Now, maybe a month before all this happened, my boss is gone and I've taken his place, and we had a daily meeting up with the ambassador, all the sections there. We had agriculture, political, economic, all that stuff. So you go there, tell them what you're doing, what's going on. And during that particular meeting, when it was the RSO's turn to speak, he said, hey, we finally got our 10,000 matchbooks, all of which have Ramzi Yousef's picture on it. Another guy named Yassine, I think he was escaped from the Trade Center, would never be, he's in the wind too. So both the pictures are on there, along with a number to call, a local number in Pakistan that for any information, and you got a $2 million reward to go with it. And so he's real happy that he got it. And the deputy chief of mission, which is like the number 2 guy, the ambassador's gone. He tells the RSO, "You're not distributing matchbooks to anybody. We don't want those things anywhere. You just store them, do whatever you want to. You got matches for life, but we're not going to distribute it." So then he said, okay, sure, because he works for the guy. And then it comes around to me, and I said, why, I mean, this could be a viable lead. But he just might drop a dime on this guy. So why would you not want to do that? He said, well, Mr. Lee, that's because we don't want anybody just throwing dead bodies over the wall of the embassy to collect the money. I said, we're not going to take any old dead body. We want his dead body. Because he knew, and it would not surprise me if that, in fact, would take place. Because I'm telling you, Pakistan is a whole different way of doing business. And you would have a crook who's wanted by the police. He would pay somebody to take his place in prison with a promise of giving him a stipend and taking care of his family and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, well, who in the hell in the right mind would do that? But, the way they think over there. So anyway, it was just kind of funny that who knows what would have happened. But anyway, the guy that turned informant and flipped on Ramsey, he had no clue there was a reward, let alone $2 million. So now the State Department can't wait to give this guy the $2 million so they can say, hey, see, our reward system works. Work like a charm. Look, we got Ramzi Yousef. And I'm talking to him. I said, this guy's an unindicted co-conspirator. Okay, he, engaged in it. He was trying to reach the goal of the conspiracy. He just got cold feet. So he withdrew from the conspiracy. Once he went to the woman that talked to you guys, that's fine. But it still doesn't erase his sins of being involved in conspiracy to begin with. I think his reward is that he doesn't get indicted. Oh, no, we got to give him the money, So they couldn't wait. They gave the guy the money, and he was a citizen of South Africa. I don't know how he got the name, but his name was Parker. He managed to get out of the country, and as soon as he got to South Africa, they seized his money as drug proceeds or something. He lost the whole damn thing. So there you have it. I'm like, gee, I saw that's a bitch of dime. He should be glad he didn't get indicted.
And you know what? You look at the terrorism world, and just another kind of fun fact with this, and how terrorism and terrorists work. Ramzi Yousef was KSM's nephew, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who planned basically with Bin Laden the 9/11 plot. Ramzi Yousef was his nephew. So, it doesn't leave the family. It stays in the inner circles. And what was the conclusion of the trial, Greg, was what?
He got like 364 years for the Bojinka thing and 2 or 3 life sentences or something. He's not going anywhere. In fact, the judge recommended to the Bureau of Prisons that he be in solitary confinement for his entire stay at the Supermax, they call in Colorado.
He's in Florence.
I'm glad you mentioned KSM, because a week or so later, the International Time magazine came out, and the reporter was reporting about all this, Youssef getting arrested, and he had an interview with a man on the street who allegedly witnessed the entire affair, and that man was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He was in the guest house at the time, and the guest house was owned by Osama bin Laden. And the guest house was located 3 blocks from where I live.
Wow. Oh my God.
It's just, I mean, just one thing after another. And then after that, now I'm sitting down with Jeff Reiner and Bill, and they're giving me, let me read all the cable traffic for the debriefings of the informant. And most of it was classified, but they classified every damn thing. But I'm reading one of them, and I go, ooh, why? They were looking, because his partner in the Philippines had been arrested. Youssef managed to escape, but he was there. They wanted to kidnap either the ambassador from the Philippines to Pakistan or an American diplomat as leverage to release his partner in Manila. And I read that and I thought, oh my God, because this was right around Christmas time. This whole thing occurred in February. At Christmas, I've got two young sons there, maybe 10 and 12. And we're talking one day and something came up and I said, see, this is why it's important that if anybody asks you questions about me or your mother or what we're doing or what we work for or whatever, you've got to clam up and then make sure you tell me about it. And my older son said, well, you mean kind of like that guy at, my brother and I were talking to, about a week ago. What guy? He said, we'd right down the street and the bus would pick him up and take him to international school. He said, well, he was asking, he said, well, are you at that house with the big black gate and the one with the big dog in it? And what's your dad do? And they said, oh, no, we live over here, over there. So, and I said, God's sakes, you've got to let me know when something like this happens. If you ever see this guy again, make sure you tell me. 2 days later, I'm getting dressed for work and my kids come running back into the house. And they said, the guy's outside right now. He's walking down the street where we are. Really? So I run out there and I got my briefcase. I got my gun in the briefcase. And I walk up to the guy and say, hey, come here. You speak English? He said, oh, yeah, I heard. I said, you do understand English, right? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. If you ever bother my children again, I'll kill you. You understand that? The boy's eyes got real big. So, oh, yeah. Get the fuck out of here and don't come back. Never saw the guy again. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, shit, maybe they're looking at me as one of the potential targets. But after that conversation, I think they decided that maybe I'm not the best guy in the world to try to kidnap, so I'll move on to somebody else. But that never took place.
You just made yourself a hard target. A fantastic career, so much we could talk about, but I just think for purposes of the audience, this was, every cop, every detective, every agent wants a great case, a great collar. This is the collar of collars. I mean, literally, there's great collars, there's unbelievable, and then there's, astronomical. This was astronomical. So now, you've been retired from law enforcement and you've done a lot of stuff, but we want to talk about what you're doing now, what you've been into now, and we'd love to have you back on the show and talk more with you. But wow, just in terms of impressive, that work over there, right person, right place, right time, right attitude, right? You could have easily said, oh, well, we can't touch him. No. This is, you had that dedication. And I saw that in DEA agents. And when I worked in the task force, I always appreciated DEA as an agency to the extent that it wasn't, they weren't sit around and do paper. They would go out and do things. And I liked that about it. It was a fun experience for me because of that, especially overseas. But you've been engaged in so much, and you're sharing what you know. You've written some textbooks and stuff. Tell us about some of your and you have a book coming out. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, well, I wrote a textbook called Global Drug Enforcement: Practical Investigative Techniques, and it's about 400 pages. It's got everything in the kitchen sink in there except fentanyl, because fentanyl was even around it. And that's been used a lot. In fact, the Chinese government asked the publisher if they could translate it and use it in their 42 different police academies throughout China. I thought, yeah, sure, that sounds good, you know. So that's done. I got Prentice Hall wanted me to write a book on physical on evidence, you know. So I wrote practical criminal evidence, and I think it did pretty good. In fact, it was the best-selling of all the books. And I would put things in there like a reality check. Even though the law says this, you got to remember about that, because the reality of the, you know, it doesn't always seem to go like that. So I threw my practical experience in there for that. Then I wrote a book called Conspiracy Investigations, Terrorism, Drugs, and Gangs. And that's also a Prentice Hall book. And I taught conspiracy at the FBI Academy. I did a lot of big time, intergalactic conspiracy type cases in LA. And I knew what the hell I was talking about. And it's got everything in there you need for a young detective. I mean, that you need to read that. In fact, most prosecutors need to read it because they don't quite understand what conspiracy is either. And there's whole kinds of benefits to charging a defendant with conspiracy. If any overt act, which is anything to further the conspiracy, occurs, if it's criminal, it attaches to all the people in the conspiracy, if they were in the conspiracy at the time. So I did a big marijuana smuggle here in Monterey. And one guy, he went to a graveyard, found somebody about his age, got the guy's birth certificate, went to DMV, got a driver's license in that guy's name. And in California, you can only get a driver's license through the mail. I charged him with mail fraud and charge every damn buddy there. We charge everybody with mail fraud. And then the guy used that ID to get a car loan that he was using to pick up the dope that was being smuggled on a boat, and they abandoned it. And so we did him for bank fraud too. Everybody got done for bank fraud, and they were not happy. Hey, you do the time, you ain't got the time, don't do it,
That is so impactful. Taking your real life, and I love the term practical. This is how it's done. Tom's a great example of this in terms of he's a creative investigator. He will find a way to find a charge, and especially, I loved working in the federal system because of that. Things like the Hobbs Act. You take, I literally, true story very quickly though, had a case one time. It was if part of a federal RICO I was doing, there was a gang member who went to a place that wouldn't pay him extortion money, throws a Molotov cocktail into the place to blow it up. It doesn't go off. It hits the guy in the head. It just spills gas on the floor. I go to the scene, and I'm on the phone with the U.S. attorney. He tells me, "What's there? Look left and right." I said, "There's a box of oranges." He goes, "What does it say on the side?" It says, "Imported from California." He goes, "We got it." He interrupted the flow of interstate commerce by shutting the store down for 2 hours so they could clean up the gasoline. Less oranges were needed. Hobbs Act. So it's amazing. You know what? Use your creativity, and this is where you learn. And when you're going after really bad people, it's not a matter of just playing by the rules. It's a matter of understanding all the tools at your disposal, and that's why I love stuff like that. So thank you for putting out those books. I hope it helps people.
So now I'm going into a whole different genre, and so I wrote a book called Stinger, the international thriller. It's pure fiction, but I was thinking, I like the challenge when I was a DEA agent. Like, okay, you need to accomplish X. Now, how are you going to go about doing it? So you use some conventional things and use some unconventional things to get something done. So I put that type of attitude for one of the protagonists in the book here. And you got the CIA involved, you got DEA and FBI, and it deals with the the CIA stealing a Stinger missile to be used in the assassination of Saddam Hussein. And they can't do it themselves, so they need some plausible deniability. So what do? They go to a DEA informant, coerce him to tell his DEA handler that he's got a guns for drugs case and to expose the Stinger missile so she could steal it. And it goes from there. Anyway, it just came out. It doesn't even launch till March 14th, but the pre-orders now on the usual places, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. So thanks for that.
Outstanding. I know Tom and I would like signed copies. We'll be happy to barter with you for some of our amazing challenge coins and other swag.
Anytime, that suits me. I just got my copies not long ago, so I've got here to mail them.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. All right. I mean, I don't know where to start except to say thank you and say we'd love to have you back on the show again. You've obviously got more stuff in your career, but we wanted to talk about this one today because, we're just so blown away and impressed by what that accomplishment was. And being the two of us responded there in 93, we're impacted by it again greatly in 01, of course. But, we never forgot about 93. And the people that were involved in that were some pretty bad, nasty people. And so when that arrest was made, I remember feeling really good about it. I was in the middle of doing a lot of federal cases in the Southern District right there near the World Trade Center. I knew people in the building that day in 93. And so Tom and I have our own experiences with that. So thank you for going out on a limb in so many ways to make that happen.
You're more than welcome. I was more thrilled than you can imagine.
What a story. I mean, I'm sitting here, you're feeling like you're listening and watching a movie, and that's what it was like. You hear the story, and that's what's, yes, it's Dan and I's show. Got it. But that's what's great about our show, because we can hear the story. We knew about it. You read about it. But then to sit here and have the guy who did it in front of us. That's why every time we do these shows, Dan, we are honored, privileged, and beyond every other adjective you could think of to have someone like Greg Lee in front of us who pulled this off, who was part of this. That's what's great about this show. Sorry, everybody. We got him. You didn't. Sorry. Dan, again, wow. Greg, thank you so very much. Like Danny said before.
If anybody's interested in, me and my background, my books, they can go to www.gregorydlee.com. It's got everything in there in the kitchen sink as far as the books and where they are and what I've done and stuff like that there.
Fantastic. We will blast out your books. We'll blast all that information out about you, including the website, on our social media. And, I cannot thank you enough again. This has been, I can't wait to read Stinger. And it's probably going to be a page turner. Looking forward to it. And we want to have you back again if you're good with that. We'll talk more. How's that sound?
It was lots of fun. I'd appreciate it.
So like we do at this time, thank you again, Greg. Everyone out there, youtube.com/@goldshields, rumble.com/goldshields, and every audio platform out there to listen and watch this amazing show. Go to our, channels and check this out. This is going to be, you're going to love this one. Awesome, awesome story. And like we do at this point in time, we pray for all our law enforcement officers out there, local, state, federal, all of them. They do work like this and putting themselves in danger every single day to make sure we're protected, our kids are protected, and our future is protected just like this. So make sure you say hi to them, give them a wave, give them a pat